Welcome back to the Point. Running for governor in Michigan, or any state for that matter, is a big job. The primary for Michigan's governor is still about a year away, but already one candidate thinks he can make it onto the ballot and won't have a primary if he does. His name is Todd Schleiger. He's running as an independent for governor. We talked with him about his positions and why he's running now. Mr. Schleiger, you're running for governor as an independent. We're going to get to why as an independent in a minute. But first, for the benefit of our viewers who have not had the opportunity to meet you or read about you, tell me about your background. Who are you? What have you done? For example, starting with your family, which is considerable.
Yes, I have 7 children. I've been in the transportation industry for nearly 35 years, from fleet manager all the way to actual driver and dispatcher of major companies.
So you took a lay of the land and said you wanted to run for governor, and you decided that you were going to run as an independent. So tell me, first of all, what motivates you to run, and then we'll get about the independent status.
Well, I never had envisioned running for public office. It was friends that had talked me into it, and then I'm originally from Flint. That's my hometown. And that put me over the edge. So I had in my own mind, I had no choice. Somebody has to make a difference for the people of Michigan.
You choose to run as an independent, and you know that makes your quest perhaps more difficult because of the nature of independent votes, getting signatures and the things you have to do, lack of party support. Why is it important to you run as an independent?
Well, I chose independent knowing it was twice as hard whether I chose a major party or not. The two parties, they can't seem to get anything done for the people. They're more concerned with pointing fingers at each other and arguing and bickering too much. And I just don't want to be aligned with something like that. I felt the best way to do it as an independent, when I do win the governorship, I can cross both party lines but yet not be held to their party wants towards the people of Michigan. And we need somebody who's in there that's going to do something for the people.
All right, then what do you want to do? Here we are. We're ready to get ready for what will be one of the biggest election cycles that we've seen in a long time. Governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, 110 seats in the state house. There will be 38 over in the Senate, 14 in the U.S. House, 1 U.S. Senate seat, and that just starts it. So
Right.
It's going to be a big race. So what are you going to be telling people that you want to do that's going to get your voice heard in that big arena?
Well, how about let's start on actually doing the work of the people. I mean, they've promised us for almost 40 years to get our roads fixed. They haven't done that, and that's due to mainly misappropriation of our tax dollars. I mean, I've talked to senators and state reps, and they don't have an answer for what's going on. I mean, you look at American Petroleum Institute, they have a web page that's dedicated to our gas taxes alone, and they tell you how much the state is actually spending towards the roads. 49 states are spending between 70 and 80% of that gas tax money. Michigan is only spending 26.28%, and that tells you right there why our roads are in such bad shape. Then if you look at the fact that back in May of 2015, Proposal 1 came out, which was for them to raise the sales tax 1%. Hidden behind that were 10 other bills. One was to raise our gas tax. Well, the people astoundingly voted 80% to turn it down. So what does Lansing do? 6 months later, they shove it down our throats in an appropriation bill, knowing that when they attach money to it, the people can't vote on it. So this tells me they've lost touch with the people. They don't want to pay attention to what their constituents are saying, and the people of Michigan need an actual voice that will listen. I want to be that voice.
Well, when you talk about using gas taxes, I mean, you appreciate that some of that has been earmarked along the years for processes that the government has to pay for. There's a $56 billion budget. There's about $10 billion of that is in any way discretionary. So what would you suggest? You would suggest turning all of the gas tax money?
That's exactly what it was meant to be. When the gas tax was created, it was made just for our safety of our roads and bridges. It wasn't meant to go any other place. I mean, Michigan collects, according to tracking for what they collect in taxes altogether for last year, was $131.7 billion. Now, the budget at the time was $54.2 billion, and that leaves roughly $80 billion out there. Now, I understand Michigan takes out bonds and other loans to complete a lot of what it's doing, but my goal is to actually cut $20 billion out of that budget.
20 billion out of the 56 billion?
Out of the 131.7 billion by restructuring our entire tax system here in Michigan. I mean, you've got mom and pop businesses paying 6% on the corporate income tax, but yet you have our insurance industry only paying 1.75. And the insurance companies are bleeding our families dry, as whether you're talking health insurance or auto insurance in Michigan. And this stuff all has to be changed. They're not willing to take on the insurance industry because they're big providers of their campaign funds.
So if you take a look at the state budget and the budget process over the course of the last 15 years has changed pretty dramatically.
Yes, it has.
And you look at the things that legislators have prioritized, from education, increase in education funding, increase in money that's going into roads and bridges, again this year, comes to fruition in a couple of more years to the tune of $1.2 billion. If you want more money in roads, for example, then where would you cut?
Well, it's not a matter of cutting for the roads. It's a matter of getting their fingers out of the gas tax funds. I mean, it estimates that $57 million a week comes from the gas tax alone. If you multiply that by 52 times, you're talking $2.96 billion. That's plenty of money to keep our roads and bridges safe.
Well, they're spending more on roads and bridges than that now.
Currently, yes, but this would take out a big chunk of that they wouldn't have to worry about. And again, if you look at it, they've let the roads go for almost 30 years. I mean, they've done upgrades here and there, but they haven't put the money where it needs to be.
All right, so roads, bridges, there's one issue. Do I hear you saying you want to tax insurance companies and other businesses at a higher rate?
No. Well, yes and no. What we need to do is we need to lower our corporate income tax down to 3%, make it flat across the board for all businesses, not just have mom and pop businesses paying the 6% and the insurance industry only paying 1.75. I mean, General Motors comes in roughly right around 4.3%, which I've had people say, well, they hire tens of thousands of people, so they should deserve a lower tax break. But you got to remember, mom and pop businesses here in Michigan, they employ 10 times as many as the big three all combined.
So you put the corporate income tax at 3%, so you say that raises some, lowers others. And you want to use all of the gas tax to go to roads and bridges. If you do those two things, what does that do to the budget?
It actually, well, I have a lot more that's involved with all that, because a lot of the people that I've spoke to, I've talked about when we restructure the entire tax system, we will effectively eliminate all the loopholes so that companies, when they come into Michigan, they know what they're going to pay in the taxes. I mean, we have, where the people of Michigan like it, as I'm talking about actually eliminating the property tax off their primary residence only. And this is all figured right into the restructuring of the tax system. You have the big box stores that are currently, there's a phenomenon called dark stores, which you have big stores that are paying like they're out of business. And this is a big issue up in the UP and in northern Michigan. It's affecting the communities. That's unfair to the communities and to the people of Michigan. You know, I realize every state pays a different property tax on their values, whether it be residential or business. But we need to straighten this out and simplify the whole system. We should have most of it accomplished within the first year of being in office.
If you eliminated property tax on primary residences in the state of Michigan, what is the economic impact on the budget? Just that piece.
That's
how much money is that?
Well, that's $13.7 billion of the budget right now. Now, at the beginning, I had mentioned that my goal is to cut $20 billion out of it. That's the major portion of cutting out of it. But the restructuring of all the taxes that I had mentioned, of lowering the corporate tax down to 3%, that's basically offset by the insurance industry itself coming up to 3%. I mean, we have banks that also only pay 0.29% out of that 6%. You know, there's all kinds of stuff that needs to be refigured into our tax system. But we need to simplify it so companies want to come back to Michigan, so that they want to start their businesses here. They know when they come into the state, they know exactly what they're going to pay. They don't have to worry about dropping through or trying to get a loophole so they can get their taxes down. Now, part of that is we're also waiting to see what the Fed does, what President Trump does, because his talk is lowering the federal income tax. So we're waiting to see what he does there as well.
Lowering the corporate income tax.
Corporate
Yeah.
income tax, yes, thank you.
If you were successful in restructuring and understanding that the budget, as you well know, is a very complex issue, so you have a plan and you're going to take it to Republicans and Democrats, because that would be primarily who will be serving in the legislature.
Correct.
Even if there was a huge sea change, it would be difficult to see independents, third parties taking over majority. How do you sell that plan to them if, as you say on your website, that current politicians line their pockets in Lansing?
Well, the lining of their pocket comes from lobbyists alone. I mean, I've seen state reps, when they know they're almost done with their time and they don't know if they're going to get reelected, they start looking for a job with some of these lobbyists. I won't give names, but the whole thing is, this is what has to stop. But to answer your question, if I can't get them to agree or to work with me, we can bypass the whole system by going directly to the people. Now, chances are, if they're not going to listen to their constituents, they won't get reelected. And we want to bring back to Michigan a system of accountability. Justice Antonin Scalia wrote back in 2005, the people's grand jury is a fourth branch of government. It doesn't answer to any of the other three branches. Now, Michigan hasn't had a common law grand jury or an actual people's grand jury for over 150 years. I want to bring that back to Michigan. This gives them the ability, as the common people or the constituents of Michigan, to literally remove an elected official from office. Now, some people have said, well, we already have a grand jury, but try to access that grand jury, they're always hidden from the people. And if you ever get put on a jury, the first thing you do is you have a prosecuting attorney come up to you and tell you this is what you can do and can't do. Well, personal experience of my own, I've been elected or put on a jury, and I brought my juror's handbook in there, and as soon as they found out I had that juror's handbook, they made me leave. So these are things that we need to change in Michigan, and a lot of people said I represent a lot of change. Well, I do, because Michigan needs a lot of different changes here.
About a minute left. Let's talk quickly about this process. You're out collecting signature, you personally, and I assume you must have other people working with you, because how many do you have to collect?
30,000.
So that's a lot of signatures, and they all have to be verified, and you have to get them from all congressional districts, although only a representative sample from about half of the districts.
Correct.
And where do you think you are right now?
We're just over the halfway mark. We have just over 15,000 signatures collected already. And I put a thankfulness out there to all the volunteers that are helping me, because they're doing a wonderful job. And I'm actually out grassrooting, and I'm actually driving for Lyft, getting out and talking to people individually, one-on-one, and they're amazed that I'm actually out there doing that as the candidate. And I told them, I said, you'll never see any of the other candidates out here doing this, but hey, it helps. All the money from Lyft goes to our campaign fund. So
Schleiger, like most of the people running for governor, has not yet qualified for the ballot, but we will continue talking to those candidates to make sure that you're informed and up to date. And we're back with more To the Point.